Look at me educating here as a reflector. Yeah, I like it. I really love it. I love to be here with all of you. Seriously. So we keep going here. 2 4, and particularly on the right angle cross of the laws, in particularly like the second line, because it's such an interesting expression here. This is the line of decisiveness. It says, the understanding of the nature of limitation, to accept its restraints when necessary, and thus be able to take advantage of opportunities when they arise. The energy that can adapt to restraint. That lines tell you why beings that have the second line have a right to be a part-time hermit. It really tells you this ability to be able to accept the limitation, to live within the limitation. The 2-4 that never gets a chance to show its natural brilliance and its talent is very happily accepting being within the limitation of its environment, puttering around and doing its thing. But it's also the fact that opportunities will arise. The second line is a natural 2-4 configuration. Opportunities already built into it. Now, the other side of this is spooky. This is an adaptation to restraint becomes habitual and maintains the nature of limitation even when it no longer exists. This is somebody, for example, that goes into retreat and never comes out. They just get stuck there. And this happens a lot to 2-4s, and you can see the tendency. They can get stuck in the mutation, they can get stuck in the limitation, and when you adapt to limitation, we see that in totalitarian societies where you learn to adapt to the way in which the totalitarian society operates. And after a while, you adapt it so long that you are the society. You become a mirror of it. You get stuck in the adaptation. So, this is one of the risks of the 2-4. Remember, they're missionaries. When they're called, they can call to an addiction or a mutation. Within the limitation, it makes it very dangerous for others. It can also make it very good for others, but it's still to see that this is a proper context. In other words, in dealing with limitations, they will not necessarily try to transcend it. They will just acquiesces. The whole theme of appeasement is in the second line. This is the Democrat that says, let them vote, let them do it, whatever they decide, I don't care, let it go. So you end up accepting the limitation that you can't influence who's going to lead you, and you end up allowing other people to make their decisions and you follow the results. It's the whole thing about how did all those ordinary people in Nazi Germany do all these terrible things? Yeah, how can we get away with these people locking us up, guys? What are you doing to your children? You adapt to a limitation and then you become it. And of course, that's the inherent risk here. And it's very heavy, it's decisive, it can make enormous difference. It's why it's very difficult to change many societies. People have adapted so much to the way in which the limitation works that they don't know how to get beyond it. It's like watching Europeans who don't have an Anglo-Saxon history trying to figure out how to be entrepreneurial after centuries of adapting to a specific kind of limitation. And then all of a sudden, this other kind of way opens up and they're not equipped. They don't know how to deal with it. It's very hard to change them. Think about all the countries on this planet or plane that had been ruled by kleptomaniac mass murderers. And you think about the citizens. People are people. We don't want to be hurt. We want our children healthy. We want to be able to give them whatever we can. And you think of whole society that are ruled by mad people. If you think, well, don't you do something about it? How do you permit that? Well, they have accepted the limitation. They have adopted to the limitation. So yeah, look out. We're getting all this limitation now by the collective of limitation, 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 and we're accepting this. It's okay that we cannot go out and that we cannot do this and we cannot hug our grandparents. But this that story. What are all these Iraqi bureaucrats going to do who don't understand how to really be a bureaucrat, who only understands corruption? Corruption has been the way for decades. It's a culture in and of itself. It has rules. How do you replace that? These are laws, and they say something horrifying about laws. It says if you keep a law running long enough, eventually everybody becomes the embodiment of the law, regardless of what the law is. It's the 30th anniversary of the madness in Cambodia. They had a motto where they killed somebody. They would say to them, "You are of no value to us, and you're not worth having around." How do people say that and then kill other people? How does it happen to all kinds of ordinary people? I remember seeing this incredible film interview with Pol Pot, one of the great mass murderers of all time. It's simple, bubbly little Buddha like creature, and you think, where did he get this? And the moment it was the law, you had those that are immediately there saying, we'll adapt to this law. We will pass that motto along. You're no value to us and you're not worth keeping. Wow, ordinary people who killed thousands of people. Same now, same story. So when you look at this, why do you think it's so important to call two fours? You don't want them to be sitting back in their houses saying, well, I adapted to this and this is what we do, and I'm not going to do anything about it anymore. I don't know how to change it. I'm not going to put myself in danger. Yeah. And this is how we all get shuttled away like sheep to the slaughterhouse, the FEMA camp. Anyway, let's go to the 2-5. Remember that we're talking about the adaptation to limitation that becomes the thing itself. One of the things about the 2-5 in this particular variation of this law is that they're really happy accepting the limitation. After all, that's what they want. They would really like to be left alone. They would really like to be beyond suspicion. They don't want to pressure or expectation on them. They realize that there's no real way anyway, it's all blocked, it's all limited. So they indulge themselves in exalting their limitation. I can't do anything out there, but I'm totally free in here. These are beings that, with their very democratic second line personality, will allow anything to go on the outside as long as they can remain a heretic on the inside. And this is the archetype of 2-5. It really is. You can see this in every 2-5. I go along sort of the outside, but I'm going to be a heretic on the inside. The risk is they get caught. That's the risk of any 2-5 with their private heresies. Private heresies to get a much more visceral reaction than public heresies. And we know that public heretics can be stoned and burned at the stake. Private heretics suffer a very, very heavily blow to their reputation. So these end being very secretive people living with the confines, within the confines of the limitation. The very fact that they can adapt to the restraint, the very fact that they can adapt to the limitation, give them the excuse as a 2-5 to simply stay here. So life is tough and life is hard and it's crazy out there in the world. But at home, I but feel really good. Everything is all right. That's what existence is. The 60th gate brings us to this place where there's no promise of anything. When you get to the 41 and the 19, you begin to see that's only at the very, very end of the cycle, that there's this potential glimpse that there's something beyond the limitation. You can see the head that's going to bite off the tail, so to speak. So, yeah, quite something, this limitation story and how it's being pushed on us, and that nobody's responding. Nobody says anything.